CEO of JP Morgan Chase that a collapse could be on its way, possibly. You guys know I've been talking about this for a while. And I want to give you his perspective on this so you can process this. Also, in fact, my mother sent me a text and said, "Did you know that Lawrence Summers, the former president of Harvard, says that he believes that the stock market's going to collapse?" And so even my mama been on top of this. She's been paying attention. Her consciousness is at a high level, and I'm proud to see that. The other piece is I wanted to talk to you all about financial literacy and the conversation I just had and an insight that I had about financial literacy and what that means for our people and why it's so critical and why it doesn't make sense for it to not be important. Why it doesn't make any sense to want to accumulate wealth if you're not financially literate. How literally that's almost impossible to do unless you get extremely, extremely lucky. So anyway, I want to say hello to everybody. Good morning. And I know a lot of you were here last night. We did an introduction to generating income by selling stock options. It was called Prime 101, and a lot of you were there for Prime 101. And I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. I hope I delivered on our promise. Our promise was literally in this session, I would literally send you away with something that you could apply right away and make money right away, like literally have money in your account this morning. And I wasn't playing, I wasn't kidding. I'm a finance professor. We can't do hocus pocus for a living. And so if you want to see the recording of that event, I'll try to find the link somewhere and see if I can give it to you if you guys want to watch the recording if you had to miss it for whatever reason. And I hope that those of you that were there enjoyed it. And if you have any questions about anything or you're looking for something, just remember we have a great support team at support@theblackbusinessschool.com. They are there to help you and have your back in any way imaginable. Now, let's see who is in the chat. I see Talia. Hello, Talia. Okay, Talia says, please provide the recording. Yes, ma'am. If Talia wants it, Talia will get that. Cynthia McCain, how are you? Jamar Jordan. Good morning, Jamar. Who else? Shout out the city that you're from, too. I always like to see what cities you guys are from. Khaleesi, Game of Thrones. Leona says, I would love the link. Okay. Tracy. Oh, I didn't see your city, Trey. It came up so fast. Cynthia, Antoinette, Atisha, Lalani. And see, I told you to put your cities in here and it's coming up so fast. I can't read it all. And maybe I'm not literate. I always talk about people being literate. Maybe I'm the one who's illiterate. I have no idea because I see Chicago and Cromwell for Nicole, Baltimore for Brenda. Let's see, Bernard Hardy. Bernard has been to several all black national conventions. And I don't know if y'all know do y'all know my little dirty little secret? Have I told y'all my dirty little secret that I'm a part-time teenager? At nighttime, remember that movie Teen Wolf where he would turn into a wolf at night? Well, I don't turn into a wolf. I turn into except for with my wife. But I turn into a teenager sometimes at night. And Bernard helped me learn how to play Call of Duty, this game which is way too violent for children. And we get on there and we have so much fun. And Bernard's one of my buddies. And let me show you all. I'm gonna show y'all my little avatar. This is how serious I am. And we were literally busting heads and kicking butt. It was so much fun. And so this is my little whatever you call it. They call it a skin or my virtual person. You see it? Can y'all see it on the screen? And there's my little name. In case you play the game, my little nickname is Coco773, and I put Coco because that was my nickname growing up. I think that is like the coolest outfit ever. And that big old fat gun I have, I literally murdered about 50, 60 people last night with my big old gun. It's called an LMG. And so I'm just look at he got the blood all over his. I'm a killing machine, y'all. I need y'all to know that. So at nighttime, in the daytime, I'm this friendly professor. It's kind of like a Marvel movie. In the daytime, I'm this friendly little professor, and at nighttime, I turn into this big killing machine. So that's my life, or teenager, either way, a teenage killing machine. There we go. That sounds more interesting. All right. So anyway, let's dive into it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna read to you all is something from Jamie Dimon, where Jamie Dimon, who is one of the leading figures in all of finance, he is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and so he controls probably over $1 trillion in assets, a couple trillion. I don't know the exact number. All I can say is that Jamie Dimon has been issuing a warning about the economy. His company, they met their numbers. I haven't seen the stock price today. I assume the stock price went up. And so that part is good. But what happens is that when companies issue their numbers, they issue something called guidance. And guidance is where the CEO, from their privileged position, kind of look out into the abyss and into the future, and they say, this is what we see. This is what is around the corner. This is what's on the horizon. And so Jamie Dimon is pretty much saying something that is consistent with what I've mentioned to you all over the last several weeks, which is that a decline, perhaps even a collapse, or something bad could be coming. And there's a few different variables that he mentions, and I felt compelled to share that with you because we talk about financial consciousness, and I want you to be conscious and aware of what could be coming down the line. So let me read some of this to you, and I'll give you my quick interpretation of what I see here. It says Jamie Dimon warns that inflation, wars, and Fed policy holds major threats ahead. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon warned Friday that quote unquote persistent inflation, terrible wars and violence, and the Fed's efforts to tighten financial conditions threaten an otherwise positive economic backdrop. Quote, looking ahead, we remain alert to a number of significant uncertain forces. That this was his particular statement, right? So as I mentioned to you all, here's the deal with the economy right now and with the stock market right now. It's not that things have actually collapsed or bad things have already happened. It's that there are a lot of catalysts that can occur that could cause things to suddenly get worse very, very quickly. It's like the economy and the stock market are standing on the ledge of the Grand Canyon, taking a selfie on one leg on the edge of the mountain, and any gust of wind that comes through, it's over. You're falling off the edge. And or it reminds me visually, because I think about things visually and in terms of analogies. Anybody ever see the movie what was it? Was it Menace to Society, when they were making all those hood movies for black people, because they think we love hood stuff. Menace to Society. Remember at the end where they always what they always do. My wife says this is subconscious, by the way, because you know my wife is an expert on the subconscious mind. She says subconsciously the goal is to always let black people know that you ain't never gonna make it. That even if you think everything's gonna be okay, it ain't gonna be okay. So at the end, they're literally packing for the guy to go to college. So you know, whenever you see a hood movie and somebody's trying to go to college, you know they're gonna get shot, right? It's like just like Ricky and Boys in the Hood. So remember at the end of Menace to Society, where they're packing for the guy to go to college, but all these things are happening, all these catalysts, all these risk factors have suddenly emerged. And then it doesn't end well, right? Because I think Kane got shot and a bunch of people got shot. I definitely think the college boy got shot, because the college, you can't have black people thinking they can go to college and have a happy, positive life. I mean, that would be counter to the consistent narrative of Hollywood. But this is what it reminds me of, where you've got this pregnant moment where all these things could happen. Nothing's really happened yet, but you're kind of on the brink. Your stock market is kind of on that brink. Iran and Israel are really talking tough with each other right now. Israel has already attacked Iran to some extent. They killed one of their top military leaders. This really disturbed me, because if you kill a top military leader of the United States is going to retaliate. Iran sounds like they want to retaliate. Well, the U.S. has basically said, if you mess with Iran, you're messing with us. You pick on them, we're gonna come and fight you. And I don't agree with any of that. I don't understand any of it. I ain't trying to go and have my family lose our life because you want to defend Benjamin Netanyahu and whatever the hell he's doing in the Middle East. And I say that because you live in a nuclear world and things could escalate very, very quickly, and that's what everyone's afraid of. So these little wars that are going on are a potential financial catalyst, or just a catalyst in general. I mean, existential threats, but also on top of that, just from a financial standpoint, should something happen, should that war even escalate, that's going to throw some things out of whack. It's definitely going to increase the price of oil, which then increases inflation, which therefore can slow down the economy and cause all these other disruptions that can exist. So what Jamie Dimon's referring to, I'm going to read this article to you, and I'm going to interpret some of this so you can be financially conscious of what might be around the corner. So it says here, He says, quote, many economic indicators continue to be favorable, so right now things are good. However, looking ahead, we remain alert to a number of significant uncertain forces. An unsettling global landscape, including terrible wars and violence, is one such factor, introducing uncertainty both into JP Morgan's business and the broader economy. Along with that, he noted persistent inflationary pressures. Inflation has shifted. We in economics we call this a regime shift. You're getting a different kind of inflation. The interest rates have changed. The fundamentals of the economy have shifted, and a lot of the shift occurred partly because of the overreaction to the pandemic. When the pandemic began, there were some creepy politicians who decided that this was a chance to flood the economy with money and to make themselves rich. And so, effectively, that's why home prices, car prices, the price of everything has shot up like crazy since the pandemic. I was stunned to see that the average home in America is now $400,000. It wasn't like that in the year 2019. It wasn't even close. And what it because I remember the day. I don't know if y'all remember not too long ago where if somebody said they were buying a $400,000 house, that was a pretty big deal. Anybody else remember that? Like just a few years ago, if you had a $400,000 house, you were balling. That's not the case anymore. You're not balling. You're average. It sucks. I hate saying it like that, but that's kind of the world that they've created. It's artificially created. He says, quote, we have never truly experienced the full effect of quantitative tightening on this scale. So what he's basically saying is that we've never had a period where the Fed has increased interest rates at this level for this long of a period of time and had that turn out okay. He said, we're very, very concerned. We don't know what we're walking into. The latter comment references the nickname given to the process the Fed is employing to reduce the level of treasuries and mortgage-backed securities it is holding. Basically, what he's saying is that they have been increasing interest rates and reducing the money supply, tightening up the economy to deal with inflation in order to keep inflation from getting out of control. The central bank is allowing up to $95 billion in proceeds from maturing bonds to roll off each month rather than reinvesting them, resulting in a $1.5 trillion contraction in holdings since June of 2022. The program is part of what they call QT, quantitative tightening. That's where the Fed is letting go of its bonds and reducing the money supply effectively by pulling in all this cash. And he says, quote, we do not know how these factors will play out, but we must prepare the firm for a wide range of potential environments to ensure that we can consistently be there for clients. So what he's basically saying is that I've got my soldiers on 10. I want their economic consciousness to be at an all-time high. And consciousness, if you recall, is awareness. I want them to be alert, on your toes, head on a swivel because anything can happen. We need you to be on high alert. Okay. Conscious alertness, awareness, right? All these things go back to what we talk about every day in this class. Diamond's comments come amid renewed worries over inflation. Though the pace of price increases has come well off the boil from its June 2022 peak, data so far in 2024 has shown inflation consistently higher than expectations and well above the Fed's 2% annual goal. As a result, markets have had to dramatically shift their expectations for interest rate reductions. Where markets at the beginning of the year have been looking for up to 7 rate cuts, the expectation now is only for 1 or 2. They may not even get the 1 or 2. So the rate cuts are something that they've been waiting for, like a little kid waiting for a Christmas gift, because they expect that the Fed, after they've been increasing interest rates for so long, that they're going to bring them back down. People like Lawrence Summers at Harvard are asking a really important question that I would be asking as well, which is why do you have to bring it down? The economy's doing fine. Maybe there's no need to bring it back down. And what the debate right now is over with a lot of economists is, well, what does it mean to have neutral Fed policy? Like, just because you've gone up, does that mean you have to come back down to where you were before the pandemic, or do you come down to a different level because you have to recognize the fact that you may be living in a different economy than the one that you had before the pandemic? So the long story short, is hide your wife, hide your kids, because things can get really bad really, really soon, and you want to protect your portfolio. Now, a couple things you guys asked me to share. Let me share this before I forget. Here is a link if you want to see the recording of our Prime 101 event that we did last night. And it's all about cash flow. It's all about increasing your income. It really works extremely well if you have a little bit of money to the side or a little bit of stock to the side that you've been looking to find some things to do with that stock to generate income, to pay some bills. Again, nothing's foolproof. Everything involves risk, but it is a strategy that I use to make money with my family. So you guys can feel free to take a look at that. And all the materials are yours for life. And also, of course, you're welcome to join the Prime program, which is that's what we do every single week. So feel free to go to drboyceprime.com if you'd like to take a look at that. Second of all, don't forget, I'll be in Los Angeles in 7 days now, 1 week now. for the Stock Options Summit. I think we have just a couple spots left, maybe a bit less than 10. If you'd like to join us in LA and hang out with us for 2 days, doing nothing but stock options and getting to know each other and hanging out and having fun and connecting and all that, feel free to go to stockoptionssummit.com. That's stockoptionssummit.com. What I'm going to do is I will try to grab the link, and I'll try to put the link in here as well if you want to take a look at that. All right, so here is another thing that I wanted to talk to you all about from a consciousness standpoint. I was thinking about just the idea of financial literacy, and I was talking to my wife and actually my daughter this morning. Like, this is where my conversations come from, that I come up with. I literally have conversations with people, and things come up, and I say, "Oh, that would be interesting to talk about from a financial consciousness standpoint." And I said to my wife, I said, a lot of people don't even know that there are lots of families that where nobody works for anybody. Nobody actually has to get a job. Like, Americans and Black people in particular, we're kind of the only group that's really taught that everybody has to get a job. If you don't work, you don't eat, that kind of thing. And as I've explained to you all, the most important thing you can have in this economy it's not a job. It's not a college degree. It's not a Gucci bag. The most important thing you can have in this economy is a capital base. If you have a capital base, then you can make money, and you can actually make money without working. If you don't believe me, I show you exactly how. Just go to boycewatkins.com or text the word money to 87948. I have a training literally called How to Make Money Without Working. It's a step-by-step process on exactly how wealthy people are able to make money without working. It's easy to implement, not hard to do. So feel free to go text the word money to the number 87948, or you can go to my website and take a look there. Now here's the thing. What's interesting to me is that with these limiting beliefs, it goes back and it circles back into the purpose of capitalism and what capitalists are seeking to do. Capitalists are pretty much rich, powerful people for the most part who sit at the top of the food chain, and they say, how do we utilize our consciousness level to take advantage of those who have less consciousness than we do? If you think about it like this, right? You can break life into a couple of categories. You got humans and animals, right? I think there's subcategories, but let's say you have humans and you have animals. Well, humans have consciousness. Animals really don't have consciousness at the same level that we do. So if I am a human and I grab a bunch of sheep and I pull all the sheep together and I take them all to the slaughterhouse, they'll just all line up and do what they're told, and they'll all line up to get slaughtered, right? Because they're not really conscious. It's not like you have a little Malcolm X of the sheep that's basically saying, you've been hoodwinked, bad, you've been bamboozled, bad, right? Like literally leading all the sheep to like rebel against the sheep herder, right? Like they're doing us wrong, bad, right? Like there's no little Malcolm X of sheep that's like leading the sheep to fight back and rebel against the system clearly designed to exploit them, clearly designed to oppress them. No, it doesn't happen. There will never be a Malcolm X of sheep or Malcolm X for cows or a Malcolm X for pigs or for chickens because their consciousness is not at that level. Malcolm had a high level of consciousness. He elevated our consciousness. That's what made him one of the greatest human beings in the history of the world. Definitely one of the greatest Americans of all time. Well, at the end of the day, when you think about this, human beings, we know, have different levels of consciousness too. So the same way you can separate humans from animals, you can separate a highly conscious, highly aware human being from a person who's a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, right? Because people's IQs are different, people's experience and exposure is different, people's awareness is different, their level of meditation and paying attention to what's going on is different. For example, did y'all know that there are studies that show that when they would go and talk to kindergartners, what they would do is they would find the kids. They found out that the kid who was the quiet kid always understood the room better than the kid who was the popular kid or the playful kid. Did y'all know that? It's like the little quiet, nerdy, detached little kid that always knows what's going on, right? So here's the deal, and I think this is something that we can keep in mind. So what they found was that the kid in kindergarten who sits there and just doesn't engage, who's in it but he's not of it, he's watching the other kids play, maybe because he's socially awkward or maybe because he just doesn't want to participate, that kid knows what's happening in that room more than other kids. His awareness, his consciousness level is far higher than the other children. There are children that are in the game, they're actually doing the playing, and then there's a kid who's just sitting back and watching, just sitting back in the cut, just observing things. And they can tell you, okay, Billy likes to play with Susie. Sometimes Angie gets mad because they take away her cupcakes, but then JoJo used to go with Cindy, but then Cindy got jealous because she saw JoJo eating a Lunchable with another girl, right? Like literally, like he can tell you these things. Why? Well, because his consciousness is high, and why is that? Well, because he's sitting back and he's being aware of what's happening. He's watching, he's observing, he's taking things in. And I really think that that's true for human beings. I think that people that sit back and do things like meditate, reflect, think, spend time by themselves, they just have a heightened level of consciousness than a person who's always in it, always reacting to things, always responding to the world. Right? So I really am a big believer that to elevate your economic consciousness and just your consciousness about everything that matters to you, take that time to just be with yourself. Sit back and just sit and just think, just relax, breathe, and just kind of look, just watch, just observe, think about things. Think about, am I happy? Like, how did I get here? How did I end up married to this person? How do we end up in this job? How did this house? Like, what happened? What's going on with the kids? Like, just think about these things, and you'll just find that you have insight that you didn't have otherwise. And my exposure to that came partly from when I used to study math at the University of Kentucky. They used to give us math problems that would take a week to solve, and they were really hard. And the first time you saw the problem, it didn't make any sense. You have no idea what the answer is, but you had to come up with the answer because you would fail the class if you didn't. So we would spend a whole week meditating on this problem, obsessing over this problem, researching it, talking to people about it, reading it 75,000 times. And then by the time the week was done, you would figure out the answer, but more importantly, you would gain so much insight and so much awareness of just the whole of all the ideas surrounding the problem, because you have to do that to conduct your investigation to figure out how to solve this problem. So generally speaking, when you talk about financial consciousness, I want you to really understand that part of what happens in our society is that you have people that have a level of consciousness and awareness that others do not have. Rockefeller, I mentioned this to you all yesterday that Rockefeller used to say that if you spend all your time at work, how are you going to find time to make any money? Which I thought was the craziest quote. It's the most gangster quote ever because he's literally saying, "Oh, you think you're making money by going to work every day? Okay, yeah, you keep doing that. We need good employees like you. I thank you so much, right?" And so and then when you hear and I will tell you, I completely believe the conspiracy theories that the Rockefellers contributed to the public school system because they basically said we need some sheep. We got a factory and we cannot run this factory without having enough sheep that we can put in the slaughterhouse. We need commodities, and our commodities are human beings and labor. So we need to get people trained and versed at an early age in a space where their consciousness is going to be reduced, where their focal point is going to be on one thing, getting a job so they can get up and go to work every day or whatever. And that's literally what they're going to be thinking about and obsessing about. Whereas as rich people, none of us are sending our kids to any of these schools. None of the Rockefeller kids are going to public schools and learning how to get nice jobs and all that. No, the Rockefellers are sitting back and figuring out how to manage people, how to manage assets. They're thinking about how to move their pieces around on the chessboard because their economic consciousness level is a little bit higher, not because they're better people, but because they just have an awareness, they have an understanding. And some of that consciousness actually comes to something like financial literacy. So when you talk about something like financial literacy, I find it really fascinating that we as a community don't always understand the importance and the significance and the necessity of financial literacy. We don't always seem to value and cherish or prioritize. Not all of us, some of you do, right? But for those of us that don't in our families, we just don't really sort of consider that to be as important as other things like, I don't know, dribbling basketballs, throwing footballs, twerking, or eating grandma's dinner on Sunday or whatever it is, right? Like those other things take precedence over the whole idea of financial literacy. Now, here's what I want you to understand. When you think about financial literacy, I want you to compare it to regular literacy, right? So instead of talking about financial literacy, let's talk about literacy, period. What is literacy? Basically, the ability to read. right? And with the ability to read should come the ability to comprehend, to consume information, to communicate information. That all is built on. You cannot do these things if you cannot read. If you cannot read, it is very difficult for you to open up a book and know what's inside that book. Somebody has to tell you what's in the book, and sometimes that person might be lying to you. Do you understand? Like back in slavery, they didn't want the slaves to learn how to read. They had the Bible, and how can you read the Bible if you can't? Even smart people have a hard time reading the Bible. It's hard. It's very tough to get through. So what they would say is they say, no, 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 don't learn how to read. We'll tell you what's in the Bible. We'll give you an interpretation. Massa done did it for you. Massa did the work for you, and he worked with your pastor, and we already interpreted the Bible, and we read the whole thing, and basically the Bible pretty much says that you should obey your master and do what you told. Like that's literally what what you know what they pretty much did, right? So effectively, when you're talking about literacy in general, I want you to imagine a person who says, I'm not going to learn how to read, but I want to succeed in society. I'm going to be the most knowledgeable person. I'm going to know what's in every book. I'm going to be able to process all the information. I'm going to be ahead of the curve. And then you say, okay, well, but you're saying you're going to do this, and you don't ever want to learn how to read. That would seem like a little bit of a contradiction. Now, maybe there's ways around it, right? That maybe they can get secondary sources, they can give them information. There's plenty of people that can't read that find a way to get by, but to some extent, that would almost be like saying, I'm legally blind, but I'm going to be a race car driver. It's hard to be legally blind and still be a race car driver. I'm sure there's some technology that might help you, but it's gonna be really difficult. And so, generally speaking, when you are not financially literate, it doesn't make sense to me that you say, I want to succeed financially, but I don't want to learn anything about finances. Do you understand? I want to be at the top of the economic food chain, but I don't want to waste time learning how the food chain operates, how to get to the top, who has the most money, how, why, what. I don't want to spend any time on that, but I want to be good at it. I want money. Think about this. Think about how often you hear. Tell me if you notice this. Like how often most rappers, for example, rap all day. All they rap about is money, money, money. Look how much money I got. I got money, money, money. Right? That's what they rap about. But it's funny though because a lot of people that will rap all day about money, even if they're not a rapper, I'm talking about just people talking about. They'll talk all day about how much money they want and getting money, but they don't take that time to learn money. They don't take that time to become financially literate. So you're trying to master something that you don't want to master. You're trying to control something that you have no desire to understand. That doesn't even make any sense. That's not that doesn't even add up. So it adds up about as much as a person saying, I don't want to learn how to read, but I plan to be the national spelling bee champion. But don't ask me to learn how to read because I ain't got time for all that. But I will. But I would like to be the spelling bee champion. How the hell are you gonna win the spelling bee when you didn't even take time to learn how to read? That doesn't even make sense. That does not compute. So when you have a society where so many people talk about money and want money and do whatever for money, and people selling only God knows what for money, but yet no one takes that time to become literate about money, how to get it, how to keep it, what to do with it when you obtain it. That is really a huge contradiction that from a consciousness level has to be confronted in every single way. Kenny Gamble is a man that I admire so much. Kenny Gamble out of Philadelphia is he's one of the he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He wrote thousands of songs with a guy named Huff, Leon Huff, I believe that's his name. And Gamble and Huff is a really famous name in the music industry. They were the Berry Gordy, from what I understand, of Philadelphia. They created the Philadelphia sound. From that group came a lot of great people like songwriters like Carvin Haggins and Jill Scott and Music Soul Child and just all this stuff that comes out of Philly. I mean, Kenny is just a great human being, and he's also a great friend. And I just have so much respect and admiration for him. I know him very well. And what I remember from talking to Kenny last time I saw him was we talked about his journey when it came to money and his journey when it came to just thinking about money in a different sort of way. So, because when I went to Philadelphia, I was walking down the most prime real estate in the city of Philadelphia. I've been talking about really expensive areas, and they're like, "Yep, Kenny owns that building. He owns that building. He owns that block. He owns these houses. He owns this. He owns that. He owns this." And I'm like, "How did he own all this stuff? That's pretty impressive." Well, what Kenny told me was we talked about it, and he said that when I got my first music contract, I didn't want to do what a lot of my friends were doing. He said a lot of my friends, and this is back in the 70s, so they were going out buying big fur coats and big pimp hats and big old gigantic Cadillacs, those big old cars that would take up both sides of the street, and that's what they were doing with their money. And he said I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be broke. So what he did was he went to a man who happened to be an older Jewish man, from what I understand, and he said, "I don't know what do I do with money?" And the man took him in the back, and he said, here's some types of accounts that you could put your money into to preserve your resources." So Kenny then had a plan where he noticed that in his old neighborhood that all the houses were super cheap because nobody wanted to live there, that these were bad neighborhoods. And so Kenny went and he talked to his friends and he said, "Hey, I got a plan. Here's what we can do. We can take over our community. Let's go buy all the houses. We're big, we're entertainers, we got all this money. Let's go buy every house we can get our hands on and really literally own this block." He said that a lot of his friends didn't want to do it. They said, why would I do that? I got baby mamas to feed and I got Cadillacs to buy and I got vacations to go on, right? Well, Kenny did it a lot of it from what I understand by himself. So Kenny goes and he acquires all these houses, and the houses were dirt cheap because nobody wanted to live there. But Kenny, because his economic consciousness was at higher than most, he saw the vision. He said, if you clean these neighborhoods up, then maybe one day they will actually increase their value. So Kenny went and bought all these houses dirt cheap, all in all these neighborhoods nobody wanted to live in. And guess what? Years later, this thing came along that you probably heard of called gentrification. Because white folks are always coming. When you're sitting on something valuable, they always come in with their little checkbooks, trying to find some way to get what you got. And that's what capitalism does. It happens. So so they show up with all this gentrification stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we'd like to replace, the pimps and the hoes and the drugs with a Starbucks and a dog park and a Whole Foods, and have little white women running through the neighborhood, right?" So they came in and they bought all this property, and the value goes up, up, up. Well, when they came in to buy all this property, guess who was already sitting on it? Guess who already owned a lot of these assets? Well, it was Kenny. And he didn't make that plan in 2012. He didn't make that plan a couple years ago. He made that plan in the 1970s. He was buying the property before anybody wanted it, so that when everybody came in and wanted that property, he was already the owner. Right? This to me is an example of how financial literacy, a commitment to financial literacy, and a commitment to increasing your economic consciousness had made a big difference. Because he could have easily taken his money and blew it on cars and women and drugs, like a lot of entertainers have done, and have nothing to show for it. Instead, he's got this pretty extraordinary legacy in the city of Philadelphia. We had our All Black National Convention in Philly at one of his facilities. This is how great this man is. And I think it's very important that we talk about individuals like this as the heroes of the community, because sometimes we'll see a comedian telling jokes or a basketball player dunking a ball or whatever, and we think those individuals are the heroes. I don't see anything heroic or anything new about that. We've always had black people that have been able to make plenty of money telling jokes, jumping or running, and rapping or performing, singing, dancing, whatever, right? Twerking, all that stuff. All that, nothing's new about that. That's been, you could go back 100 years and you could find black people who made millions of dollars making fools out of themselves or entertaining white folks. That's literally something that has always been in existence. There's nothing new about that. What is new and revolutionary are when you talk about those who were able to actually elevate economic consciousness and make financial decisions that put themselves in a position of true power. Kenny is a powerful man in Philadelphia. Kenny Gamble, that's his name. You should look him up. He's a great guy. He's a good human being, and he's a big fan of the Black Business School. That's how he and I became friends, because I think that he heard something from me about me or something, and he reached out, and I was happy to meet him because I'd heard about him, and it was just a great love fest, and I just admire the man immensely, and that's a person that I think is the kind of person. These are the people that we need to hear about, the people we need to talk about, the George Frasers. I mean, my lord, just great people Dr. Claude Anderson, of course, and there's so many good people in our space that really are doing the right things for Black people. And I think it's very important that we go out of our way to consciously elevate their names above and beyond the nonsense that you might see in Hollywood. There's nothing special about a Black person just because white people put them on TV. And in fact, you have to be really careful because sometimes they put them on TV for all the wrong reasons. Sometimes they'll put them on TV because they are buffoonish or because they will do something no other Black person is willing to do. And again, it's not to me making fun of all the entertainers, and I get heat about this a lot. I have people that say, you're always criticizing the rappers, you're always criticizing the gangster culture and everything else, the thug culture. And I'm like, why would I elevate that? Why would I support things that are killing us? Why would I do these things just to be popular? That doesn't make any sense to me. So if I alienate some people by saying these things, then I cannot apologize for that because you cannot support ignorance. You just can't. So anyway, all right. So let's move on. Let's move to the next topic. Now, one thing I'll mention is I think I shared this with you. If I didn't, there was something we did called stormproof investing the last week, and that kind of gets you ready for what I consider to be the economic storm coming up. And let me see if the URL were okay. That's not the right URL. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll share that link if you guys want to take a look at the stormproof investing event that we did. And then also, if you are interested in joining for some of these smaller group sessions that we're going to do, like the prime sessions and stuff like that, you can actually email support at theblackbusinessschool.com. I know some of you have asked for one-on-ones and stuff like that in small group. I don't do a lot of one-on-ones. They're kind of hard to do, but I do some small group sessions, about a couple every 2 weeks. So feel free to reach out to email support at theblackbusinessschool.com if that's of interest to you. All right, so let's kind of you know what? Let's take 1 second. And how about we do a quick Q&A? How about if you ask me questions? Now, remember, the goal of this class is economic consciousness. That's the goal. So if you say, well, what do you think about this stock? That will be a better conversation for our stock market class. So if you say, hey, which stock should I sell options on? That's the kind of thing that we would cover in our stock options class. But if you have a general question about economic consciousness or awareness or what we cover here, put it in the Q&A section, and I'll answer a few of your questions before we bounce out today. And also, I will say this: I think that the stock market right now is it's doing really well. If you are making money, then you may want to protect those investments. Just make sure you may want to shave some off the top, get some put options, put some stop loss orders in place. Do something to get ready, because I do think that a lot of people. I hear a lot of people trying to justify this idea that they believe the market's going to keep going up. I don't believe it's going to keep going up. I think that this year you're going to probably see a pullback. That's what I believe, but we'll see. Also, just from a money making standpoint, I definitely think Bitcoin. Remember, the Bitcoin halving is coming up. Halving, HALVING, where they cut the rewards for making Bitcoin in half. That is supposed to reduce the supply while the demand remains constant. So put your question in the Q&A section. If you put it in the chat, I may not see it. But if you put it in the Q&A section, I'll be able to answer it. Now, don't forget, if you ask me about a stock or something like that, I'm going to answer that very quickly, because that's more so for our stock market conversations. Let's see. What do you think about company? Tori, I don't know if when you say what do you think about company, there was a discovery of rare earth metals in the U.S. Ramaco. I don't know that stock, given that there's thousands of stocks in there. If you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, you can leave that question and I can research that stock for you and give you an answer. So feel free to go to the blackstockmarketprogram.com. There's a link where you can leave me questions and I can look it up. Since there's so many thousands of stocks, I don't know every stock off the top of my head. I'm interested in the Prime program, but from what I understand, the course is more for those who can invest 10K in the market. Please advise. Yeah, well, you know what, Cynthia, the Prime program, what it does is we cover everything, particularly with stock options, from the beginner level to more advanced stuff. But then also you get free access to things like the stock market program as well. So if you want to learn about stocks, really it helps to understand stocks when you move into options, right? It's like understanding the mother as you learn about the child. So we give everyone in the Prime program access to the Black Stock Market program too. So there are some people that have a capital base, some that are building their capital base. It's easier once you have a capital base, right? It's easier because it's like coaching a good basketball team. It's easier to win if you have great athletes on the team. And so basically, if you have some money put to the side that you've invested, then that could really make it easier for you. If you're not there yet, we can give you strategies on how you can get there. And also, we've had some students that have gotten together with their family members, or maybe they've gone to the convention and met people, or again, the stock options summit. The reason we have live events, they're really tough to do, very expensive, etc. We do live events mainly for you, mainly so you guys can get a chance to actually meet each other and talk and connect and share resources and figure things out. So ultimately, there are a lot of different ways to skin the cat. So ultimately, if you're interested in the Prime program, text the word money to 87948, or you can also email support at theblackbusinessschool.com, and they can help you figure out what might work best for you. Let's see. What's up with Japanese interest rates? Japanese interest rates, Errol, have been really low for a really long time. The Japanese economy is so freaking weird. I think they had negative interest rates in Japan. They just have really strange central bank policy. Their savings rate is incredibly high. Japanese people love to save money. They're not like Americans. We'll max out the credit card all day. Japanese people will save, 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 save. And so the stock market, I know in Japan, from what I understand, the Nikkei index had something like 25 or 30 years where it didn't go up for a long time. And that was really fascinating to me. I don't understand it all, but I do know that it's weird, and I know that this shows us what could happen in the United States. Like, we're used to our market going up every decade. There's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee of that. Let's see here. Let's see. Next question. I'm looking in the Q&A section. What do you think about Nvidia? Says Larry. I happen to know about Nvidia. I like Nvidia long term as a big power player in AI. I do wonder if Intel is going to break into that a little bit. I know Intel just released some new chips. I assume that they're sitting around obsessing all day on how they can compete with Nvidia. Can they? I don't know, but I do think I would be very surprised if Nvidia was able to maintain its position of market dominance for more than another couple of years. Doc, is it a good idea to take out a loan for capital when selling call options? Antonio, this is not investing advice. I can't tell you what to do, but I can say that I've seen people do it and I've seen them make it work. I think the key idea, in my opinion, is safety. I think if you're really, really careful and conservative and safe, it can definitely make sense. So just, be thoughtful about doing really risky things when it comes to borrowing money. But I've seen people do this. I've seen people that borrow, $80,000 and are able to make enough money selling stock options that they can quit their job. It's not hard to do. It's straightforward right there, drboyceprime.com. You can feel free to go take a look at that. It's really not hard to do. In fact, it's so easy to do that if you jump in and you're not in and we can't show you how to do that, just tell us and we'll give you your money back. We're not here to trick you at all. I can't do that. I'm not an internet influencer. I'm a finance professor, so I can't just go and make things up like that. What do you think of prop firms? Ask Ayana. I don't even know what a prop firm is, so I wish I knew. I don't. That doesn't ring a bell for me. So maybe you can explain a little bit more, and I can tell you more what I think. Next question. I'm looking in the Q&A section here. If you put your question in the chat, I probably won't see it because I have ADHD, I think, and I don't. If I try to focus on more than one thing, then I'll confuse you because my brain will jump back and forth, and it just gets ugly. So I'm focused on the Q&A section. Jeremy says, with the emergence of AI, how should we protect ourselves and our family from job losses that will happen? Well, one thing obviously is two things to come to mind are, one is to learn AI. I think that studying AI, it's important enough to study it. Just like when the internet came along, it was really helpful if you took a class on how to use the internet. Well, the same thing is true with AI. I think studying AI and the rapid advances in AI can be extremely beneficial. The second piece is there are AI companies that you can invest in that will allow your wealth to grow with their wealth. And I actually have a list of AI stocks. If you text the word stock to 87948, I'll send you the list of AI stocks. So just text stock to 87948. I can show you some stocks that I'm invested in. There's an AI ETF. The ticker symbol is AIQ. So feel free to look up that. And again, not investing advice, but you can look it up. Ginger, what stocks do you recommend for those who have a small capital base? Every week I do a list of stocks in the Black Stock Market program called What Dr. Boyce is Buying. So that is something you can look at theblackstockmarketprogram.com. However, if you also want to just look at what we just talked about today, stocks like AIQ and the AI stocks, if you text the word stock to 87948, a lot of these stocks allow for fractional shares. So that means that even if you have $10, you can still buy Nvidia. You just won't get a whole share. You'll just get $10 worth of Nvidia, but that still gives you a connection to Nvidia's financial fate. So don't think that you need a certain amount of money to buy stock, because what a lot of people will do is they'll start buying like $2 stocks and $1.50 stocks because they feel like they don't have enough money to buy the $400 stocks, stuff like that. That's just not the case. Robinhood and other apps, they allow you to buy pieces of a stock, and that's just as good. It's better actually than buying these little $1 stocks, stuff like that. A lot of those penny stocks are bad news, so be really careful. Let's see. Jasmine says, what would you say are the basics of financial literacy? I would say things like saving, investing, budgeting, how to use credit cards, and then also more advanced stuff, in my view, would be just how to make money, different ways to make money, streams of income, that kind of thing. And for our kids, we in our Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program, we train our kids on very simple models that will make a big difference in their lives. Like we have one model called the STURDY model, and it's STERDY. It stands for Systems, Technology, Entrepreneurship, Relationships, and Delegation for the Youth. That basically means that these are the ways that millionaires make their money. Millionaires don't make their money by getting a job. They make their money by creating systems and learning technology. And then another acronym we use is what was it? It was poise, keeping your poise. And it stands for producer, owner, investor, saver, entrepreneur. So if you pay your child, if you want to really give your child a gift for Christmas that's going to last for the rest of their life, definitely last longer than some of these crazy toys that we spend our money on, give them like $20 to memorize the POISE acronym and have them explain it to you and what each letter means. And that will stick with them for the rest of their life. That little basic move will probably put an extra $1 million in your child's bank account over the course of their lifetime. Why do I say that? Well, because what you're doing is you're doing something deeper. Again, we're in the Black Business School, we consider ourselves to be Black wealth surgeons. And surgeons know how to dig deep to the core of the issue. They know how to really dig down to the cause. The Black wealth problem has not been solved because no one's taken it seriously. No one's really explored the depth of it. They'll just show up and they'll say things like, we need to get more jobs for Black people, without exploring the fact that getting jobs has never worked. Or they'll say, just vote for the Democrats. And even though there's not a lot of evidence to say that stuff has worked, you can vote for whoever you want. I just don't think it's going to impact your wealth. As surgeons, we're able to identify the specific root of the problem and exactly what you would need to do to fix that and how you could fix it in a very easy way. So a lot of times a surgeon can go in and he can see what's happening inside your body and maybe realize, okay, if we cut off the blood flow to the tumor, then we can kill the tumor or whatever. So it might be just a little tiny incision required to redirect some system that changes everything. So basically what you got to do with your kids is you got to redirect the damn system. You got to go deep. You got to start at the core. You got to start early, and you have to change their values. The kids are broke, and when they get older, because their values are just in a place that is anti-wealth. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not trying to be judgmental or whatever from a moralistic standpoint. But let me show y'all a video really quick. I got to show y'all this video. I put it on my Instagram. My Instagram is the real Boyce Watkins, and it's basically a video of a white girl crying. So all of you should be sensitive to that because we're trained as human beings to get really sad when white women cry. So let me play this video for you. And she's crying because she doesn't have any money. She's crying because it's so hard to survive and everything's expensive and all this other stuff. And my heart goes out to her. But then again, my heart, it goes out to you more. So anyway, listen to this video. I thought it was really interesting. So here we go. Let me see. Let me know if you can hear it.
Won't be able to afford rent. I'm not a rich person. I don't have a lot of stuff. I have basic household necessities, a couch, a bed, washer, a dryer. That's about it. A car. I don't have a lot of lavish things. I don't go on vacations, and I don't spend a lot. Rent's increased from $1,300 to $1,800. The food prices are too high. I've cut back on eating because I literally cannot afford food. I've cut back on my favorite snacks, cat food, treats. I'm exhausted all the time from being overworked and underpaid. You don't catch a break when you grow up poor. I don't need much to be happy. I just want to be able to live comfortable. They just really need to catch a break right now. I'm trying so hard and I feel like I'm not doing enough. I don't have family. I don't have anything to fall back on. This is the first month I won't be able to afford rent. I'm not a rich person.
Okay, so what? So in the Black Business School where we have our Black Financial Therapy department, there is no other Black Financial Therapy department anywhere on the planet that we know of. Um, my wife, again, she's not just a therapist; she's a therapist that trains other therapists. So what she would probably say, and I'd love to get my wife's assessment. In fact, I think I'll bring her in one day so she can watch this video. Is because all she does is she sits and does and meets with clients all day who are who are struggling psychologically. She would probably say that she's experiencing something that called financial anxiety. And so her anxiety is really high. She's probably depressed, very, very sad. Well, why? Well, because she's got this economic instability in her life that's very painful for her. And it's very sad to watch this. Now, let me tell you what goes through my brain when I watch this video. Again, some of it's gonna I'm gonna sound like a professor. Some of it I'm gonna sound probably borderline offensive. But my first question would be, well, where's your daddy at? Where are your parents at? Where did your family help you? Like what's going on? Because if somebody has simply invested for you, like we talk about with the $5 a day plan, which anybody can do of any income level, your child doesn't have this problem. They've got $100,000 liquid in the bank in their bank account. Rent goes up, they're fine. They're not even renting anything because they're probably owning some property, right? So that's the first thing that I ask is, where's your daddy? Where's your help? Again, and that's my bias. I'm a big believer in Black fathers. I believe fathers matter. And I know that fathers, again, mothers can do a lot of things. Mothers are amazing. But there are things that we can do too. And so one of the things that I notice in our household is that my wife and I, we just approach parenting different. She's thinking more about love and nurturing. I'm thinking about security. I'm like, okay, let me make sure that you're safe. Let me make sure that you're good. One of the kids that I adopted, she's now in her 30s, and but I've been I've been a dad in her life since she was 10. And when she was in college she wanted to go to Europe one time and take this trip, and she and I said, well, and I did what my father would have done. I said, well, how much money do you got? And she said, well, I've got $250. I said, well, how long are you going to be there? She said 3 weeks. I said, how the hell are you going to survive in Europe for 3 weeks and you got $250? I said, girl, are you crazy? And they had no credit cards, no nothing. I said, okay, I ain't gonna have you out here tricking on the street so you can pay rent that night. Let's figure this out. Let's make a plan. So here's a credit card that you can use. Don't overuse it, but you can do this in case of emergencies. Number two, here's some cash. And then number three, I said, you do understand that $250 won't even pay for your luggage to get to Europe. I mean, to go to Europe, it's gonna cost you at least 100 and something dollars, maybe $200 to just get your stuff there. Right. And she didn't know any of these things. And so my father instincts kicked in. I wanted to because where I came from, again, this is why economics and culture are connected. Where I came from, masculinity was measured not by growing a beard, drinking whiskey, and thumping your chest. Masculinity was being accountable for something, taking responsibility for something, protecting and defending something. So my masculine energy kicked in where I said, look, I got to defend you from this because if you get out, do you understand what happens to a young girl who gets out in this crazy world and she ain't got no money in her pocket and you're in a foreign country? Are you nuts? No, we're not doing that here. Right. So ultimately, when I see that little girl crying, I feel bad because I'm a girl dad, and I don't want my daughters crying like that. I want to be able to step in and say, okay, let's fix this. And the thing about fixing a problem, again, remember, I look at problems differently. This is why I offend so many people. I offend a lot of people because I give my truth based on what I see, and if you can't see it, then you're gonna just get pissed because because it's so contrary to the standard stupid Negro narrative that there's nothing you can do to fix your life, that you're just stuck and nobody can help you, and the only way you can save yourself is if you pray to Lord Jesus, Joe Biden, or whatever, and he's going to come in and maybe do what he can and sprinkle you some little crumbs. I don't live in that world. That is not a world I am ever going to live in. So yes, if you ever want to know, like, because I think I'm a nice guy. I try to be happy, friendly, and helpful. I don't know why so many people get mad at me. The only thing that comes to mind that I can think of is that I'm saying things in a very direct way that is so contrary to what they might already believe. And what psychologists say is that when somebody presents ideas to you that are different from what you've been led to believe, your first reaction is that you're going to get pissed. That is what they call cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance means that rather than sitting back and saying, okay, this guy's he's a professor and he's 52, so he probably knows a couple things. Let me think about what he said. Some of y'all are smart enough to do that. There are some people who just say, F you idiot. Yeah, how dare, yeah, oh, I thought you was a professor. You a so-called professor. You ain't just, and I'm like, well, prove me wrong. And that's when there's silence. There's no response at that point. I'm like, well, if I'm wrong, tell me where I'm wrong. I need to know this because I don't want to go around saying the wrong thing, but people can't do that. So the reaction can just be anger. So when I see this video, um, I have sympathy first and foremost. I want to make that clear, right? I again, I know it's a little white girl, and I was being funny about that, but I don't think anybody deserves to suffer like that. I don't want to see anybody in pain. I saw a young lady that's in pain, and it's on my Instagram, by the way. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. So if you want to go and chime in and comment, feel free to go to Dr. Boyce Finance. But here's the other thing that comes to mind. My other question would be, um, were you prepared for this? Did you have anybody that even showed you different ways to make money? Because you do know that, and I get it, right? I told you all the dynamics. Corporations don't pay what they used to pay. That's just a fact, and it's only going to get worse. I want you to know that inflation has gotten worse. That's a fact. It's going to continue to get worse. Well, why? Well, because the people that are the masters of the economy. See, we think inflation hurts everybody. Inflation does not hurt everybody. There's this thing called asset inflation. Asset inflation benefits people who own assets. Did y'all know that? That asset inflation, because if the price of my house, if the price of real estate doubles, and I'm already on the boat, I'm already on the real estate boat, and the tide lifts the boat, then I'm gonna be twice as high as I was before. The only people that get hurt when the tide lifts the boat are the people who are trying to get on the damn boat. Right? So if you don't have a family that got you on the boat before you see, this is the master plan that I really want you to consider, is that if you get your kids on the boat before they're born or while they're young, then when the boat rises, they're going to rise with it. If they're off the boat, if we're doing this whole ancient Negro tradition of starting over every generation, starting from broke, starting with nothing, because nobody in the family thought to prepare for my arrival, then yeah, it's gonna be hard as hell. Hard as hell. And it doesn't just happen to black people, it happens to white people too. As you can see, she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman. I thought that they had wonderful lives. Let me mention a couple other things I noticed in this video. Um, I know it's unpopular to say this, but I think that this is an example to show you why dating and marriage is about more than just sex and getting with somebody because they look good. There are cultures around the world their marriages sustain as a means of economic survival, because there are some societies where you can't survive. You can't survive as a single woman without a husband or as a single man without a wife. You can't. You stick with that partner because that partner is your teammate. And if you're trying to win a basketball game and you've got a couple of teammates on your team, and then someone says, well, you're a pretty good player, you could probably win this game by yourself, you would say, oh, hell no, I can't win a basketball game by myself. I need at least 5 people on the team. So there are people that win the economic game because they come into the game with teammates. Nigerians value family more than anything else. And that means that you should never ever pick a fight with a Nigerian, because you're gonna have to fight 27 cousins at the same time. There are cultures, Asian families, they will come at you as a gang, as a clique. The Jewish communities, they will all arrive as a group, as a collective. The whole trying to swim by yourself thing, there are some cultures that just don't do that. They don't even think that's rational or logical. So when I'm looking at this young lady struggling financially, I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, I feel bad for you. It sounds like you don't have any backup. You don't have any teammates. See, let me give you at least 3 quick ways that this person, and again, I'm not making fun of her at all, because a lot of people are in this situation because you've been lied to. You get rope-a-doped. Or maybe the people that talk to you about economics don't understand finances the way I do. I have no idea. I'm just going to tell you what I see. 3 ways she could have backup. Because this is what financial security is. All security really means is that you've got backup. She's not feeling secure. So the result of the insecurity is all this anxiety and crying on the internet and everything else, right? The three areas where she could have and should have had backup, the three areas where your children are going to have backup, your grandchildren are going to have backup is number one, somebody should be preparing you for the economy before you get there. You should have somebody that's been investing for you, somebody that's been building an asset base for you, that's been making the bed for you to prepare for your arrival into the game of competitive economics. This should be a standard cultural norm. Because if somebody prepares and they've got 20, 30 years, 40 years to prepare, it's very easy for them to make sure that you're wealthy as you enter into the game. Number two, another form of preparation is financial literacy. This is why in the Black Business School, we believe that every Black child should learn to start a business by the age of 12, just in case white folks ain't hiring. And also, every Black child should own stock on the day that they're born. The best birthday gift to the newborn grandchild or baby is shares of stock, and then what you do is you compound that with more shares of stock. You don't just do it one time and then say, I did my piece. No, you don't do that. You feed them. You got to feed them economically, just like you feed them physically. You don't feed your baby 3 times and then say, okay, you good. You shouldn't be hungry for the rest of your life. No, you feed them regularly, consistently. As long as they are under your purview, under your guidance, they should be getting fed consistently, not just physically, but they should also be getting financially fed, intellectually fed, spiritually fed. You keep on feeding because you're getting them ready for the war. What's the third thing? I'm actually going to mention four things actually instead of three. The third area where you get backup is this is why you have things like savings and investing and side hustles, multiple streams of income is so that you have that safety and security in case things go bad, in case your boss lays you off, in case they won't give you a raise, in case something breaks down, right? You have these backup mechanisms that protect you. Americans do not save. Americans are trained not to save. I believe it's deliberate because I believe they want to keep you economically vulnerable so they can keep you getting up, going to work every day. People that are not economically vulnerable are not as motivated to get up and go to their job as somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck. So I would not be surprised if this was done deliberately. Pimps got to keep their hoes in check. Okay, so that's what's going on with that. Number four, the fourth thing is family and marriage. I encourage you to understand that it is a massively lost opportunity when people just think that you should date and marry because somebody's cute, because they have a nice booty, or because the sex is good, or whatever. I personally think you got to really rethink this and understand that when you have multiple people in a household that are all coming together to pay the bills, you're going to do better paying the bills than a person who's doing it by themselves. Now, if marriage and all that is not your thing, that's fine. Get some other teammates. I've seen people get roommates. I've seen people in their 50s have three people that they trust, that they work with. It might be a cousin over here, a sibling over there, a best friend over here, and they all pull their money. They say, it's really hard for us to all afford rent because rent's going to be $1,800 a month. That's hard for all of us. But what if we all came up with $1,400 a month? 1,400 times four. That's what's that? What's that number? That's $5,600 a month. Ooh, now we could buy us a big fat gigantic house and all have equity in this house. And so when inflation shows up and the value of the house gets pushed up, it's okay. We're not so mad about it because we're getting wealth. We're experiencing what they call in economics the wealth effect, which means that our wealth is going up because we are invested in real estate. We are invested in the stock market. We're actually able to participate in the wealth building process because we have an economic surplus, right? Because before we were all paying $1,800 a month and literally stretched to the limit. We were paying every nickel that we made. We were literally paying every single nickel. We were chucking for nickel by ourselves. But now that we've got $5,600 a month and the mortgage is only $4,000, we've got a $1,600 a month surplus, which then allows us to take the surplus and put it into the business. Take the surplus, put it into the stocks. Take the surplus, put it into the real estate, and now we're balling. Now our wealth is going up. Now inflation doesn't bother us as much because it's going to cause the value of our stocks to go up, the value of our real estate to go up. We got a business, so our product prices will probably end up going up. So we're not so mad about what's happening in the economy because we've jumped the fence to become wealth builders. So you got to understand that a lot of people, I talked to my friend Julian Gordon this morning, and Julian has been, he was the dean of a real estate in the Black Business School for many years, and he had a great statement that I always love to repeat, which was that he said most Black people don't have any income. And I said, "What do you mean Black people don't have any income?" He said because if you look at a corporation's financial statement, income is your revenue, your money that you bring in minus your expenses. That's what income is. Income is revenue minus expenses. It's what you make minus what you spend. And how many people do you know the tricky financially because every nickel that they make it goes out. They got to spend it all, and then when prices go up, then you're really stuck. Now you gotta go and max out the credit card, so you don't have any income. And when you don't have any income, that means you have no surplus. No surplus means you have no excess wealth that gives you the opportunity to pour into assets that you can actually own. So effectively, that basic idea of living below your means, which is something that you've known since you were little. Anybody that's got a grandma probably has a grandma that told you to live below your means. Grandmas are not usually the most extravagant people in the world, at least old school. Now you got grandmas on Instagram thinking they're 20 years old. It's a different world now. But when I came up, grandma was all, she grew up in the Great Depression and she'd been through Jim Crow. Grandma is real good. Grandma's a financial genius in a lot of your families. She can make a dollar out of 15 cents. She has very basic wisdom that will take you a long way. And one of the most basic forms of wisdom that grandma might have taught you is don't live above your means. That is one of the most powerful financial ideas in the entire universe. I saw Boosie, Lil Boosie, the rapper. He had this girlfriend who got she got this car. It was a Jeep or something, or I forgot. Anyway, I think it was a Jeep. And people were like, "Why don't you have him get you a Mercedes or a Bentley or whatever?" And she said, "Because I like my Jeep." And she said, "I like to live below my means." It was a Bronco. It was a Bronco truck. Thank you, Talia. So Talia keeps up with this. I see. I'd be scrolling too. I like to see what's going on in the culture, right? So I saw Boosie's girlfriend had this Bronco, and I loved her simple answer. Her simple answer was, "You got to live below your means. You got to live below your means, y'all. You got to live below your means." And I said, "Great, that's perfect financial advice." Because when a person lives below their means, what happens is that instead of going into a deficit, creating a deficit economy, you're creating a surplus. And when you have a surplus, that gives you extra money that you can then use to allow you to jump the economic fence and become an investor. You're accumulating wealth. So you got to understand income is nothing more than opportunity. Income is the opportunity to have wealth. And remember, the word poor stands for what? Passing over opportunities repeatedly. So a lot of people stay poor because when they get the income, which is their opportunity to build wealth, they don't use it, they waste that opportunity. They take the income, they throw it out the window, and they keep doing that over and over again. And then when a financial crisis arrives, they're not ready. They get broadside, they get body slammed by it. So the best way to prepare for a crisis is to prepare for the crisis before it becomes a crisis. This is a cultural concept. This is about values. This ain't about, you don't have to take a finance class to know these things. You just listen to your grandma. Your grandma always, she prayed for you. She worried about you. She wanted to keep you safe. Go listen to grandma. Grandma could probably tell you a whole lot. I learned a whole lot from that's why I honor my grandma, right? She's right there behind me. She's the Panther. We named our Panther Felicia in the Black Business School because my grandma gave me a lot of basic common sense ideas that kept me out of trouble. Do you understand? They kept me from, I didn't overstretch. I didn't go chasing waterfalls. I didn't put myself in dumb situations. I took a lot of risk in my life, but it was always a calculated, careful risk. It was not following the crowd or whatever, right? So grandmas, we got to give a shout out to the grandmas out here and the granddaddies too. We got some of y'all got some great granddaddies that taught you a lot of valuable things about work ethic and consistency. I really believe, and I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna be done. I believe that the way forward for intelligent Black people is to look to the past. I believe that the best way for us to win in the year 2021 2020 is to go back to 1920. I think that the best way for us to win in the future is to look at what our people did before you had integration, before you had affirmative action, before you had diversity, equity, and inclusion, and corporate jobs and student loans. What did they do when they had nobody, when there was no Superman to come save them? Back when they really understood that white folks don't love you like that, how did they survive? And I bet you'll find a whole lot of wisdom there. And then if you really want to go back, you can go back to some principles from ancient Africa that are very powerful, because that's thousands of years of wisdom all piled together. All right. So anyway, I'm done for today. Again, if you want to take a look at the event we did yesterday, Prime 101, where we were talking about generating income with stock options, here is the link for that if you want to take a look at that. Or actually, let me give you the link to the Stock Options Summit first. Stockoptionssummit.com is the URL. And here's the link to the Stock Options Summit if you want to join us in Los Angeles. We're going to be in LA this week, and it's going to be from the 19th and the 20th. So feel free to join us there. And then also, I'm going to find the link to Prime 101. There we go. Prime 101. And the number one goal of Prime is to make money selling stock options. I think it's a great way to make extra income. So feel free to take a look at that. And if you want to join the Prime program, where I give you weekly, or actually not every week, every 2.5 to 3 weeks, I make a list of what I call Dr. Boyce money makers, which are the assets that I use to generate income for my family. But then also when we meet, we talk about ways to minimize your risk, ways to adjust to the changing economy, ways to adjust every week in terms of roll ups and roll downs and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what we do in the Prime program. So feel free to go to drboyceprime.com if you'd like to take a look. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure you're on the text list. If you're not on the text list and you want to get invited to Monday in the Morning Financial Consciousness Training, just text the word morning to the number 87948. If you text morning to 87948, I'll send you guys an invitation. Have a good day, everybody. And I hope this discussion was beneficial to you. And if I offended you, then I can't say I'm sorry, but I can say that I hope that we can still be friends.